Sarah's water broke at 3:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. Not the gentle, movie-like trickle she'd imagined, but a sudden gush that sent her husband Mike scrambling for car keys and the hospital bag they'd packed 3 weeks ago. "It's time! It's time!" Mike shouted, nearly tripping over their golden retriever as he rushed to help Sarah to the car. After 9 months of preparation, parenthood classes, and countless conversations about their future daughter, this was it. The drive to Mercy General felt like both an eternity and a heartbeat. Sarah gripped the door handle as contractions hit every few minutes, each one stronger than the last. Mike kept glancing at her, muttering reassurances that sounded more like he was trying to convince himself than her. "We're here, baby. We're here," he whispered as they pulled into the emergency entrance. A wheelchair appeared immediately, and Sarah was whisked through automatic doors into the bright, sterile world of the maternity ward. Everything happened in a blur of paperwork, admission procedures, and medical questions. Within 20 minutes she was in a delivery room, changed into a hospital gown, and hooked up to monitors that beeped reassuringly. "Your nurse will be in shortly," the admitting nurse said with a warm smile. She was focused on breathing through another contraction, squeezing Mike's hand until his knuckles went white. The pain was intense, but manageable. She felt strong, ready. They'd done this in their birthing class a dozen times. She knew what to expect. The door opened with a soft whoosh. "Good morning, Sarah. I'm Marcus, and I'll be taking care of you today." Sarah looked up and felt her breath catch. Standing in the doorway was a tall, lean man in navy scrubs, but that wasn't what made her heart skip. It was the tattoos. They covered both his arms from wrist to shoulder in intricate dark designs, Celtic knots intertwined with what looked like religious symbols. Script in a language she couldn't read wound around his forearms. A small cross was visible just above his collar. Mike's grip on her hand tightened almost imperceptibly. Marcus seemed to sense their hesitation. He'd seen this reaction before. Moving slowly, deliberately, he approached Sarah's bedside with a gentle smile. "I know what you're thinking," he said, his voice surprisingly soft. "And I get it, but I've been doing this for 12 years, and I promise you're in good hands." Sarah tried to smile back, but another contraction hit, and she doubled over. Immediately, Marcus was at her side, one hand on her shoulder, the other checking her monitors. "That was a strong one," he said, his voice calm and professional. "You're doing great. Let's check your progress." For the next hour, Sarah found herself watching Marcus work. His movements were precise, confident. He anticipated her needs before she voiced them, adjusting her pillows, dimming the lights when she winced, bringing ice chips when her mouth felt dry. His hands, despite the dark ink that covered them, were gentle and sure. "Tell me about the tattoos," Sarah said during a quiet moment between contractions. She surprised herself by asking. Marcus looked down at his arms, then back at her. "Each one tells a story. This one," he pointed to a delicate design on his left wrist, "is for my daughter. She was born premature, spent 2 months in the NICU. It's why I became a labor and delivery nurse, actually." Sarah's expression softened. "Is she okay now?" "She's perfect. 16 years old and thinks her dad is embarrassing." He grinned. "She's probably right." Mike laughed despite himself. "How old were you when you had her?" 22. Young, scared, completely unprepared. But the nurses who took care of us, they changed everything. They made me feel like I could do it, like I could be the dad she needed." Another contraction hit, stronger this time. Marcus immediately shifted back into professional mode, coaching Sarah through her breathing, checking her dilation. "You're at 8 centimeters. We're getting close." The next 2 hours passed in a haze of increasing intensity. Sarah's contractions were coming faster, harder. Mike held her hand, whispered encouragement, but it was Marcus who became her anchor. He seemed to know exactly when to speak and when to stay silent. When she needed encouragement, he gave it. When she needed space, he stepped back but remained watchful. "I can't do this," Sarah gasped during a particularly difficult contraction. "I'm not strong enough." "Yes, you are," Marcus said firmly. "Look at me, Sarah. You've been doing this for hours. You're already doing it. Your body knows what to do. Trust it." There was something in his voice, a certainty that cut through her panic. She nodded, focusing on his steady brown eyes instead of the pain. "That's it. Just like that. You're incredible." Dr. Martinez arrived as Sarah hit full dilation. "Ready to meet your daughter?" she asked with a smile. The pushing stage was intense, primal. Sarah felt like she was running a marathon she hadn't trained for. Sweat beaded on her forehead. Her muscles screamed. But Marcus was there, his voice steady and encouraging. "I can see her head," Dr. Martinez announced. "One more big push, Sarah." Sarah bore down with everything she had. Mike was crying, she realized distantly. Actually crying. And then, "She's here! She's perfect!" The room filled with the sound of a baby's cry, strong and indignant. Sarah collapsed back against the pillows, exhausted but exhilarated. Dr. Martinez placed the baby on Sarah's chest, and she looked down at her daughter for the first time. She was beautiful, tiny, wrinkled, covered in vernix, but absolutely perfect. Her eyes were closed, but her mouth was open in protest at being thrust into this bright, cold world. Sarah touched her daughter's cheek with one finger, and the baby's crying softened. "Hi, sweetheart," Sarah whispered. "I'm your mom." Mike leaned down, kissing first Sarah's forehead, then the baby's. "She's so small," he whispered in wonder. That's when Sarah noticed Marcus. He was standing at the foot of the bed, ostensibly checking her chart, but his eyes were on the baby, and they were wet. "Marcus," Sarah called softly. He looked up, not bothering to hide his tears. "Sorry," he said, his voice thick. "I never get tired of this moment. New life, new hope. He paused, searching for words. "It's why I do this job." Sarah felt her own eyes fill. "Thank you for everything. I was scared when I first saw you, and I'm sorry for that." Marcus shook his head. "Don't apologize. I understand completely, but I'm glad you gave me a chance to show you who I really am." "What's her name?" Mike asked, still staring at his daughter in amazement. "Emma Grace," Sarah said. "Emma Grace Patterson." Marcus smiled. "That's beautiful. Hello, Emma Grace. Welcome to the world." As the medical team finished their procedures and the room began to quiet, Marcus prepared to leave. His shift was ending, and another nurse would take over Emma's care. "Before you go," Sarah said, "can I ask you something?" "Of course. The tattoo on your right arm, the one with the script. What does it say?" Marcus glanced down at the elegant lettering that wound around his forearm. "It's Latin. Amor vincit omnia. Love conquers all." Sarah nodded, understanding. "It does, doesn't it? Every single time," Marcus said. "Congratulations, you two. Take care of that little angel." As the door closed behind him, Sarah looked down at Emma, who had finally settled into peaceful sleep. Mike was still crying, she noticed, but they were happy tears now. "What are you thinking about?" Mike asked, noticing her contemplative expression. "About judging people by their appearance," Sarah said quietly. "About how wrong I was. Marcus was exactly what we needed today. He was perfect." Mike nodded. "The best people often come in unexpected packages." Sarah kissed Emma's forehead, breathing in that sweet, indefinable scent of newborn baby. "I want to remember this moment forever. Not just Emma being born, but everything. The lesson about not judging, about kindness, about how people can surprise you if you let them." "Marcus changed how I see tattoos," Mike admitted. "Each one told a story. They weren't just decorations or rebellion. They were meaningful, like scars," Sarah said thoughtfully, "but chosen ones. Stories written on skin instead of hidden away." 3 days later, as they prepared to leave the hospital, Sarah asked the head nurse if Marcus was working. "He's actually downstairs in the NICU," the nurse said. "His daughter volunteers there sometimes. Would you like to see him?" They found Marcus in the neonatal intensive care unit, wearing a different set of scrubs but the same gentle expression. He was talking quietly to a young woman with dark hair and kind eyes who was holding a tiny premature baby. "Marcus," Sarah called softly. He turned and broke into a huge smile. "Sarah, Mike, how's Emma?" "Perfect," Mike said, gesturing to the baby carrier. "We wanted to say goodbye before we left." Marcus's daughter looked up curiously. "Dad, are these the parents you told me about?" "This is Sophia," Marcus said proudly. "Sophia, meet Sarah, Mike and Emma Grace." Sophia smiled shyly. "Dad said you were amazing during delivery, that you were really brave." Sarah felt her cheeks warm. "Your dad was the brave one. He took care of us when we were scared." "That's what he does," Sophia said simply. "He helps people feel safe." As they walked back to the elevator, Sarah carried Emma, while Mike pushed the wheelchair required by hospital policy. She thought about the last 3 days, about fear and prejudice, and the way assumptions can blind us to beauty. "I want to write about this," she said suddenly. "About Marcus, about how wrong I was, and how right he was for us." "You should," Mike said. "People need to hear stories like this." "What would you call it?" Sarah asked, adjusting Emma's blanket. Mike thought for a moment. "The Tattooed Angel," he said finally, "because that's what he was. An angel who just happened to have tattoos." Sarah smiled. "Perfect." 6 months later, Sarah's blog post about Marcus went viral, shared thousands of times across social media. It sparked conversations about prejudice, assumption, and the importance of looking beyond surface appearances. The hospital received hundreds of messages of support for Marcus, and several people wrote to say the story had changed their own perspectives. Marcus himself was characteristically humble about the attention. "I was just doing my job," he told the local newspaper. "But if it helps people think twice before judging others, then I'm glad Sarah shared our story." Sarah framed a copy of that newspaper article and hung it in Emma's nursery, right next to her birth certificate. A reminder that the world is full of unexpected angels, if we're brave enough to see them. And sometimes, Sarah would tell Emma as she rocked her to sleep, the most beautiful souls come wrapped in packages we don't expect. The trick is learning to see with our hearts instead of our eyes, to look for the love that conquers all, written in whatever language it chooses to speak.